Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
She said that if there was a time when you were getting beat up in a room and couldn't walk out, you would reimagine it in a way that you were actually able to leave the room.
You were in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially.
What happens when affectionate texts from the past collide with 4 intense days of gut-wrenching courtroom testimony? Cassie's startling claims about violent abuse and coerced sex parties have shaken the case wide open, and Diddy isn't holding up under the pressure.
Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is set to retake the stand and face what we expect to be her final round of questioning under cross-examination. Court currently is on a short lunch break, but if you recall, the judge previously said that he wanted Ventura's cross-examination to wrap up before lunch today. Prosecutors have said that Ventura, who's nearly 9 months pregnant, could soon go into labor.
Over the last hour, the defense has been asking Ventura more about her 2018 rape allegation against Combs, Ventura's drug use, her mental health problems, and a 2014 threat that she made to a man who claimed he had seen a sexually explicit tape of her, also raised in court. The defense at one point asking Ventura, quote, "Do you still have love for him?" referring to Combs, and Ventura answered by saying, quote, "I have love for the past and what it was."
Cassie's testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom, silencing even the most hardened onlookers. This wasn't just about a breakup, it was something far darker and more disturbing. At the heart of her claims were so-called freak-off parties, private gatherings she alleged were orchestrated by Diddy, where she said she was forced into unwanted sexual acts. And just when it seemed her story couldn't become more harrowing, it did. According to her account, these weren't glitzy celebrity parties, but tightly managed events with women expected to perform for Diddy and his guest. Early on, Cassie said she was pressured into joining these events and quickly realized refusal wasn't an option. She described being stripped of autonomy, with Diddy allegedly dictating her clothing, behavior, and even social interactions at these gatherings. What looked like a glamorous love story from the outside, she claimed, masked years of manipulation that began within their first week together. She explained how these freak-off parties were presented as part of the package of being with him, something expected rather than optional. The courtroom reacted viscerally, gasps filled the air as she described feeling trapped in a degrading cycle. The events, she said, were attended by elite guests chosen for their status, and women expected to follow orders without hesitation. For prosecutors, her story marked a turning point. It painted a portrait of long-term control, not just isolated abuse. They framed these parties as part of a sustained campaign to strip Cassie of agency while maintaining a polished public persona. Then came the most disturbing allegation. Yet Cassie claimed Diddy once ordered her to engage in sexual acts in front of him. At one of these parties, she described feeling stripped of humanity, calling those moments some of the darkest of her life. The weight of this testimony was overwhelming. Many in the courtroom looked shaken, and even Diddy appeared visibly rattled. This, however, was only the beginning. Prosecutors hinted that more than just words backed Cassie's story, including surveillance footage from a 2016 incident that would soon take center stage and potentially reinforce her case even further.
We're in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially the pictures and the texts that they got to see so far.
Well, I was in the overflow room today, but the consensus about the jury is that they've been pretty stoic. There was one juror who seemed to have a bit of a reaction when they were shown sealed photos. I believe it was about 2 days ago. These were freeze frames of Cassie and Sean Combs and an escort in an alleged freak-off still shots. So there was a little bit of a reaction there. But again, overall, the consensus also in the overflow room is just that people are shocked at a lot of this testimony, a lot of the evidence that's coming in. And it's tough. We are seeing, I guess, just like this side of Cassie that, unfortunately she's had to disclose to all of us to help get a conviction for Sean Combs. And you really feel for her because she's remained so composed throughout, her cross-examination, her direct, the redirects, and she's 8.5 months pregnant, and we didn't see her lose her temper or just get, angry at all or frustrated, and I find that to be pretty incredible.
The room fell into stunned silence as the prosecution revealed surveillance footage tied to a 2016 incident, now a key piece in Cassie's case against Diddy. Up until this point, the trial largely revolved around her disturbing testimony. But now, there was visual proof to accompany the claims, proof that couldn't be so easily dismissed. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a reality on tape. According to Cassie, the 2016 assault was one of the most terrifying moments in a relationship she described as volatile and abusive. She recalled being trapped, yelled at, and physically attacked, escalating to levels she hadn't anticipated. Even in their troubled past, her emotional account was already powerful, but the footage added undeniable weight to her claims. Though not released to the public, it reportedly matched her timeline and served as a chilling illustration for those inside the courtroom. She said the incident left her emotionally and physically wrecked, and now the jury had something tangible to connect with her pain. The prosecution seized the moment, pointing to the footage as direct validation of her story. Diddy's defense had tried to paint the relationship as chaotic but mutual, minimizing long-term abuse. But the footage contradicted that narrative and lent serious credibility to Cassie's allegations. The mood in the courtroom shifted dramatically. Jurors were said to lean in, faces tense, taking in what reporters described as deeply unsettling imagery. Meanwhile, the defense scrambled to regain footing, arguing that the context of the video was incomplete and that one incident shouldn't define their years together. Their rebuttal focused on undermining Cassie's overall credibility. But with the footage fresh in jurors' minds, their argument rang hollow. Legal analysts noted how risky this approach was, as it walked a fine line between damage control and denial. Even those already sympathetic to Cassie felt the impact of seeing her testimony visually reinforced. The footage helped paint a broader picture of systemic control and emotional degradation, all while challenging Diddy's image as a suave industry icon. As the prosecution wrapped the segment, the defense pivoted in a surprising direction, presenting affectionate text Cassie allegedly sent after their split. Whether this tactic would hold up remained uncertain, but it introduced a new question. Could the defense reshape the narrative by reframing the emotions that lingered after the breakup?
This like when you hear all these things, and of course this is their side of the story. But when you hear these things, it's just like, dude, why was this man so possessive, so demonic, so just I don't know, like you got that much money, you're on the top of the world, and you really think that you're invincible. I mean, people can be rich and do a gang of positive things for people. You know, I ain't saying he ain't never helped anybody out, but a lot of times when they do that, it's to mask all the craziness that they do. But I'm just saying, think about someone in his position just doing good and great things for people, man. But you have this, you know, doing all the freaky stuff, all the like. That's not the issue with him having that type of life. It's just when all the illegalness comes in, you know. And I think that's what people are getting confused on. They think like the domestic stuff and the other stuff don't go hand in hand. It does. And even though he's not being charged, but it goes hand in hand. And like I said, if you're on the jury, you I don't know how you can look past that. It's the control factor. So he was using intimidation to get what he wants.
The defense made its move, introducing a string of affectionate texts Cassie had allegedly sent to Diddy after their breakup. On paper, it looked like a strategic counter to her harrowing testimony, a way to inject doubt by showing warmth where there should have been only pain. If Cassie had truly endured years of abuse, why stay in touch? Why send light-hearted, even loving messages? That was the question the defense wanted jurors to consider. But what was meant to be a bombshell moment quickly backfired. In court, the mood shifted not towards sympathy for Diddy, but discomfort. These messages, which hinted at care and familiarity, were jarring when placed beside the visceral details of freak-off parties and the 2016 assault. The prosecution wasted no time tearing into the defense's approach, calling it manipulative and context-blind. Trauma, they argued, doesn't unfold in straight lines. Victims often maintain contact out of fear, confusion, or emotional conditioning, non-affection. Cassie herself addressed the messages directly when she returned to the stand. Calm but firm, she told the jury that what looked like warmth was, in truth, survival. Maintaining a cordial tone with Diddy wasn't about forgiveness or affection. It was about managing a man she feared. The messages weren't a contradiction. They were a shield. Observers inside the courtroom described a visible change in the jury as Cassie explained the emotional aftermath of her exit. Far from undermining her claims, the messages ended up reinforcing them, highlighting just how deeply control can persist, even after a relationship ends. What the defense hoped would be a turning point had instead become a stark reminder of the power imbalance at the core of Cassie's story.
Firing on the defense?
Oh, Brianna, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yes, you are exactly right. The defense needs to be really careful what they're doing here because she is a victim. She is a victim. She has put herself out there and saying that she survived these horrific instances of rape, of other assaultive behaviors, some of which we've seen evidence of on that videotape that CNN exclusively obtained and then broadcast, and thank goodness for that. And so with the defense trying to go down this road, trying to attack her therapy, the government's going to get right back up there and say, well, the only reason she needed to go to therapy and seek EMDR and the other types of therapy was because of the actions of your client. Combs' attorney team. So they're going to go right back at it and say that had she not been so brutally traumatized, she wouldn't have had to seek therapy. And that's a good thing. And certainly anybody on that jury who's ever been to therapy or knows anything about it, they're going to be thinking about how Cassie Ventura could be being traumatized right now. Again, in having to relive all of the various questioning for days from both sides. So you're right, Brianna. This is a slippery slope that the defense team is on right now with her.
As Cassie's testimony continued, so did the focus on Diddy this time, not for what he said, but how he reacted. Observers noted his shifting posture, clenched jaw, and burst of visible frustration. For someone long seen as confident and in command, his demeanor told a different story under pressure. The cracks were starting to show. Cassie's most disturbing allegations, including being coerced into sex acts at freak-off parties, left the room hushed and heavy. But it was Diddy's reactions that drew just as much attention, according to courtroom reports. He leaned back, shook his head, and whispered harshly to his lawyers. At one point, as Cassie described being berated and controlled in front of others, he reportedly clenched his fist, visibly rattled. Legal analysts watching noted how risky this could be. Jurors aren't just weighing evidence, they're watching behavior. Where Cassie was composed and detailed, Diddy's emotional outburst could read as defensive, even volatile. That contrast wasn't lost on anyone. Tension peaked when Cassie described the psychological toll of their relationship, the fear, the constant performance, the sense that resistance was never safe. Her voice didn't waver. The courtroom once again fell silent. Diddy's expression hardened, his body language tight, restless, reactive, spoke volumes. For the jury, it wasn't just about hearing what Cassie endured. It was about witnessing the dynamic in real time. Every exhale, every glare, every reaction from Diddy only served to highlight the very traits Cassie described. What unfolded in court wasn't just testimony, it was a glimpse into the control and volatility she claimed had defined their relationship.